How's it going, guys? Yeah, I'm in my car, fixing to go watch UT beat Georgia. Hopefully, go Vols. But anyway, we'll start talking about the book of Romans a little bit, and I try to keep these videos short as humanly possible because nobody's attention span is very good anymore, especially mine. So, but just to kind of give a nutshell summary, the book of Romans exists, thank God for us. The Apostle Paul had been wanting to go to Rome for quite some time. He wanted them to be established and, rooted in the gospel of God, the good news of Jesus Christ. And I think a lot of people miss this, that for Paul, the gospel of God, the good news of Jesus, it's not just a salvation message. For Paul, the gospel is God's decree. In other words, it's God's whole plan. God's whole plan from eternity past, creating mankind, knowing he would fall. And through that, he calls himself a genealogical line. He chooses and he calls them to himself. And through this genealogical line, he creates a nation, and that nation's Israel. And Israel's purpose is to bring salvation to the ends of the earth. Well, how do they do that? They do that by bringing forth Jesus, the Messiah, Jesus Christ, Jesus of Nazareth. And so the church has never been plan B. The church has always been God's goal. That's the whole point. And for Paul, it's the whole story that he tries to get across, this whole story of God's plan. And, and in some ways how it was hidden, and he talks about that and stuff. So, and of course, not just in Romans, but in his other letters too. And also about this time, Claudius Caesar had banned all the Jews from Rome, including the Jewish Christians. And so if there ever was a Gentile church, it's not a thing of the future. There was a Gentile church in the past at Rome, because the Jews had been expelled from Rome, and they were beginning to come back, and Paul wanted, part of Paul's purpose in writing is to understand, how the Jews fit into this picture now. Now Gentiles are involved, but how do the Jews still relate to God's plan? How